Hey, this is JJ from SyncronidiocyGaming, and things are starting to get exciting because today we're taking a look at Generations Sandstorm. Being a remold of Generations Springer, Sandstorm is a very similar car mode, albeit with an effective use of new parts. The beefed up armored car looks very Mad Max with its armored windows and ludicrously huge rear tires. The color scheme works quite well with the orange stripe going down the center and the well-placed yellow and black. It strikes this nice balance of looking busy, but not too busy. I really love the beautiful silver paint they use for the wheels, especially since they make up so much of this car's visual flair. As for action features, you get pretty much the same thing that Springer's car mode had. Except this gun only has one missile instead of two. You can fire it by pulling back on the black section towards the front. This vehicle does a great job at barreling out of Springer's shadow and finding its own personality, despite using what is essentially the same basic skeleton. As far as comparisons go, we got the usual soda can and Prime, as well as Springer. Sandstorm's transformation into helicopter mode ends up being very similar to Springer's, with only a few notable differences. First of all is the completely different top half, which expands and unfurls very impressively. The second would be the sides, which half transform into their robot mode positions instead of wrapping around the sides of the front panels. Besides that, it's a very familiar transformation. The helicopter mode is where things get interesting, as Sandstorm ditches the more familiar helicopter silhouette for that of a VTOL chopper. Overall, I like this alt mode much more than Springer's helicopter mode. It just feels much more well put together. There are fewer annoying gaps, and the whole thing is much larger and more convincing. Features-wise, the landing gear is still intact, and the gun attaches to the front in a similar way. You can even tilt the fans if you want, to give it the impression of flight. For Sandstorm's comparisons, we have the usual soda can, the usual Prime, and Springer. Changing into robot mode hits many of the same notes that it did with Springer, the only drastic difference being the backpack, which does an admirable job of trying to fold up and compact itself for being something that takes up almost half of the individual vehicle modes. Besides that, it is very much the same as Springer's transformation. Sandstorm's robot mode once again proves to be extremely similar to that of Springer, even more so than his other modes. Despite this, he does have quite a few unique parts, those being his shins, knees, chest, head, and backpack. For the most part, I do like the new additions, with the only drawback being the head. The way the designers sculpted his head just makes him look bored, and although it may be thematically appropriate to the character, it has the downside of making the head sculpt look boring, and the rather generic helmet doesn't really help things either. Sandstorm's only feature is his gun, which works pretty much identically to Springer's. It even has a similar mounting point to his backpack. Sandstorm's articulation is largely the same as Springer's, so if you want to check a more in-depth look, then watch Springer's review by clicking the annotation. So starting off with the differences, Sandstorm has a more limited shoulder. He can't go full 360 because of the backpack, and you can move the fins a little bit. You can even bring them forward if you want. And his waist is unimpeded by the backpack due to the new design. There's not a bunch of junk hanging down here, so you don't have to untransform it a little bit to actually be able to get 360. It does bump against the sides, though, but it's nothing too bad. For comparisons, we got soda can, Prime, and Springer. I like Sandstorm about as much as I like Springer. He has a lot of the same advantages and disadvantages, being cut quite literally from the same cloth. That being said, I would heartily recommend Sandstorm for anyone who doesn't already have Springer and likes his looks more. With that out of the way, join me next time as Titans return.
Hey everybody, Kenny here. If you like this review for Generation Sandstorm, go ahead and check out JJ's previous review of Generation Springer here if you haven't already. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of our stuff. Thanks!